Hey everyone, what is going on? What is going on? I apologize for the lack of music, the fanfare that was missing from this broadcast. This is kind of an impromptu broadcast, I should say, because the last several days I actually have been doing live streams on TikTok, Substack, Facebook, YouTube. So I've been busy doing live streams, also promoting this webinar that I've got going on. But I'm doing this live stream, and normally my time to do this live stream is going to be, make sure, get over here. Give me just 1 second. Normally, my time to do live streams is Thursday, each Thursday at 7 p.m. For That Man Show. But today, I want to do something different. Well, not just talk about in the space of leadership and things of that nature, but I want to talk about why men are so lonely and what we can do about it. I'm not personally dealing with that now. I have dealt with that in a time in my life many, many years ago. And so we want to dive into that conversation and talk more about it because it is absolutely important. So give me just a second here as I kind of get some things together here. Make sure that we are live. We're actually going live on LinkedIn, which is my normal stomping ground for live streams. And then we're doing a live stream over on Facebook. And also on YouTube. That's going to be at Men's Life Coaching over on YouTube. So I wanted to say welcome. My name is Curtis Brooks. I'm a executive coach for men, and I'll just kind of cut to the chase because this just really kind of fell on my heart this evening. Actually earlier this evening, and I was not going to do a live again because. In the last several days, I've been doing live streams just back to back, and it's just a little tiring because of you're giving from yourself, especially for me as an introvert. You're giving from yourself, and so it can be a little bit exhausting. But nevertheless, that's what that's what's going on. So we're talking about why men are so lonely and what we can do about it. So I'm going to give you some numbers here, and first to get the conversation going, so you kind of just have some kind of data or at least foundation on where we're going with this here. It says friendless men. 15% of men report having no close friends, a fivefold increase since 1990. Now, guys, or at least for the ladies, this may not be of interest to you, and it may be interest to you, but for us men, it is a real thing. It is something that is real, active, and alive that we are dealing with, and so it's important that we discuss these things. And I know in the past I have not really talked about this subject. And I think sometimes once we get over that personally as people, when we get over that hurdle ourselves, it can seem as if it doesn't matter anymore. And in fact, it does matter, but it can be something that we're just not pressed to or a concern of ours anymore because we are no longer dealing with it. So again, that is not the case here because obviously the name of the show is That Man Show, and that's exactly what we. Okay, Marcia's asking. I want to say hey to a special hi to Marcia. She actually kind of just reminded me, hey, are you going to go live? And, it wasn't a push, but it was just a reminder because I knew I wanted to go live and talk about this subject matter. And she reminded me that kind of gave me a nice little tug, a gentle tug to say, hey, you know what, are you going to go live? And like I said, I wasn't, but here I am. And let me see here. Give me 1 second, Marcia. She's asking for a link here. All right, guys, give me 1 second here. I'm gonna send the link here for YouTube. And by the way, Marcia, where are you at on? Why aren't you on LinkedIn anymore? I haven't seen you in a while on LinkedIn. You've been hanging out on YouTube. Maybe you're busy over there, but nevertheless, let me see if I can grab the link for you. All right, there you go. I just dropped the YouTube link in there for Marcia over on, or actually in LinkedIn DMs. So Marcia, you should have the link for the YouTube over on LinkedIn in the DMs. So that being said, guys, we got a great show for you. We got an intense conversation. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from the men. Hey, Sharito over on LinkedIn, how are you? Hope that you are doing well. Again, we've got this conversation concerning men and loneliness and what can we do about it. The bigger thing is that let me give me a 1 second here. I got a few things going over here. I am not the world's greatest. What do they call those people who do more than one thing? Yeah, them, him or her. I'm not the greatest multitasker. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's definitely not my claim of fame. So, but anyways, we're talking about why men are so lonely and what can we do about it. So I was in the middle of actually reading some stats to you, and the stats are saying here the stats are saying here that 15% of men report having no close friends, a fivefold increase since 1990. And it says that the young men's loneliness, and I'm not sure, or it says 15 to 30, ages 15 to 34, their loneliness is reported, or ages 15 and 34 have been reported feeling lonely. 1 in 4 young men. So that is a lot of people. That is a lot of men. And I know this conversation may not be, it may not be the conversation that a lot of us need to hear, but in fact, we do need to hear this conversation because I think that as long as we as men can go in hiding, so to speak, those issues persist. And unfortunately, to the demise of us as people, to the demise of a society. So it is no longer just a thing that we're dealing with in the sense of this is my problem. It becomes a man's problem. It becomes all of our issue, and we must be prepared to tackle this issue. And I think customarily we as men. We don't do a lot of talking, and some of us do, but yeah, and some of us talk about things that we probably shouldn't be talking about. But during this conversation, guys, you want to get to the heart of the matter in regards to at least hopefully get to the heart of the matter and pull on some heartstrings. And for us men who are dealing with that loneliness, because it is a real thing. Let me go on and read some other stats here. It says close friendships. Only 27% of men have 6 or more close friends, down from 55% in 1995. Me personally, I don't have a whole lot of close friends. I have one or two, and I'm good with that. And since I was a young person, I was much younger, and I was dealing with this loneliness as well. So I haven't dealt with it for years now, and I would really attribute that to my faith. I'll be honest, and again, I'm not trying to convert anyone. That's not my goal here. The goal of this conversation is for us to have this conversation, this much needed conversation. Oftentimes, we as men, we want to talk about leadership. We want to talk about being ahead, being in front, and just coming up with these great ideas. But unless and until we tackle the things that are at the basis of our lack of creativity, our lack of responding to life, until we get to the crux of that thing, we're going to continuously be faced with this loneliness. We're going to be continuously faced with the the stigma that men don't share their feelings. And yes, it is true. A lot of men don't share their feelings, but I think it's key to understand that there are certain things that we should share, and other things that we might keep to ourselves. And for me, a lot of times to hear a man, and I'm just going to be honest, to hear a man just going sharing the things that he shouldn't share with other people, especially with women. I'm being very honest with you guys. This is one of my things here. I think for us as men, there is a space that we need to create for each other. And oftentimes, because of the stigma that has been created around men not talking, men not sharing their feelings, uh, it is unfortunately, it is something that we all have to work through at some point. You have to work through that. Uh, I'm going to share this thing. It just kind of came to mind, and it's not funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. It came to mind years ago. My ex-wife. One of my favorite ice cream is butter pecan ice cream, and we would have this particular brand in Chicago. I think it's called what is I forget the name of the place, but nevertheless, there's a certain brand of ice cream that we would have, and I just loved it, and it was just packed full of pecans and all that stuff, and so I would eat this ice cream, and my wife would say, "What are you doing?" And I would be chewing it. I would be chewing the ice cream, and not necessarily chewing the ice cream in itself, but chewing the ice cream because it had pecans in it. And so my wife would say, "You're weird." At the time that this is a different relationship. Obviously, we're divorced now, but she would say, "You're weird." She thought that was the weirdest thing. She thought that was the weirdest thing, me chewing ice cream. And I thought it was so weird that she thought it was weird because I was chewing ice cream. And again, I was chewing the ice cream because it had pecans in it, lots of pecans in it. And again, this is one of my favorite ice creams, but it had lots of pecans in it. Here I'm chewing this ice cream and she's thinking it's strange. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why is it so strange that you think because I'm chewing ice cream? It has pecans in it. I thought it was ridiculous. It has pecans in it. This almost sounds like a Seinfeld thing here, but nevertheless, but it has pecans in it. So I was like, what's the big deal? And so here I was quietly to myself, and I thought it was just completely absurd that she would say something like that. But here I was in a moment to myself saying, wait a minute, let me try not chewing. Maybe I am doing something weird. It's and so next thing you know, again, this is kind of a private moment. I never said this to her, but probably never will. But nevertheless, but here I was trying to enjoy my ice cream without chewing it. And mind you, there's pecans in the ice cream. And again, trying to just, I don't know, comfort that thing that was in my head, say, well, maybe I am strange about this. Maybe I shouldn't be chewing ice cream. So here I was in this quiet moment trying to enjoy my ice cream, and I'm laughing, but here I was trying to enjoy this ice cream, and without chewing it, to say the least, without chewing it, and I'm swallowing this ice cream with whole pecans or half pecans, whatever the case might be. I'm swallowing this ice cream, and I'm just trying to get it down. I'm doing this quietly to myself, but in the back of my mind, I was like, Curtis, what are you doing? And so, nevertheless, the next conversation, I said, you know what? You're ridiculous. I do have to chew this ice cream, and it's not funny, but it is funny because it reminds us. It reminds me of the situation that we're in right now. A lot of us as men dealing with this loneliness pandemic is because we don't often like to talk about our loneliness. We don't like to admit that there were challenges that we dealt with in life growing up, dealing with our parents or lack thereof. Oftentimes, our parents had issues they were dealing with. My parents, too. And the world teaches us as men to suck it up. It teaches us to pull up your bootstraps and you're going to be okay. But the reality of it is that unless we address the elephant in the room, man, this elephant or this situation or that thing that we're sweeping under the rug or the carpet, that molehill, that whatever you want to call it, that obstacle that gets in the way, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, and it gets bigger. And there's a term, a gentleman, I haven't actually seen him for a while here on LinkedIn. He would talk about a scientific term called entropy. I think it's how it's pronounced, entropy. And it's a scientific term, and it talks about, hey, Mike, what's going on, man? Yeah, I do. Yes, absolutely, Mike. I do remember you put that article together. Mike over here on LinkedIn says, I wrote an article. He wrote an article on men need to be whole. Absolutely. And a great piece of information Mike shared over here on LinkedIn. And so what happens is that, I apologize, lost my train of thought, is that for us as men, we need to be prepared to look at the things that we've swept under the rug. And as I mentioned earlier, kind of it's coming back to me now. As I mentioned earlier, there is this term called entropy, and I don't know. They don't know all the ins and outs on that information, or at least that term. But I do know it's a scientific term, and it introduces thermodynamics, and basically. Entropy, yes, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you. And it introduces more scientific stuff called with dealing with thermodynamics. But by and large, or at least the gist of it, it says that that I may not be explaining this right, but hopefully, hopefully, I'm explaining this the best that to best of my ability. But it talks about how a matter or a situation, for the propensity for that thing to turn back and get better, is next to nothing. So the idea is that when a situation starts, or a disruption starts, if you will, and again, I'm explaining this the best way that I can remember right now, but nevertheless, it's a very interesting study. But nevertheless, or subject matter, is that when a particular situation is set in motion, be it chaos, or chaos is in most cases not set in motion for the sense of creating chaos, or even peace. Peace has to be tended. You have to work at peace. And this entropy basically says that every situation gets worse. Every situation gets worse without some kind of intervention, with some kind of situation, or whereas that we are talking about, we are discussing things to improve a situation. It's not going to, again, I may have completely chopped it up, but please look it up for yourself. It's entropy. It's spelled ENTRO. Let me ENTROPY. Okay. So I could have just chopped that up, but give me some grace here. Nevertheless, yeah, absolutely, Michael. Michael over here on LinkedIn says a system without a feedback loop. In this case, other men, we're in danger of entropy, basically soul death. And there's a lot that Michael is saying there. Unless we as men are prepared to talk about things, guys, I wish I could express this more than I could. I guess the next level would be me crying, or something of that sort. Not that there's anything wrong with crying, but I really feel the pressure on my soul to talk about these things. And men, you're not alone, man. You are not alone in this space. Men are invisible even in marriages, even in relationships. And again, it's not meaning that women aren't invisible or at least feeling like they're invisible. It doesn't mean that women aren't dealing with loneliness. It's not. But more often than not, women will come together and say, hey, I'm dealing with XYZ. Hey, I have an issue with this. Can you help me out? More often, women will get to come together on a collaborative effort, whether it be business, relationships, fun, trips, vacations, whatever. They'll come together and talk about a certain thing, share some things that they need to offload. And for us as men, and I want to even say this more so than just that in itself, because I think oftentimes we try to isolate that thing. And it's important to try and isolate that thing. But I do want to say this as my confession that I'm a part conspiracist. I do accept and believe certain things have been set in motion intentionally. Absolutely, I do. I believe that there are institutions out there who are who will put out propaganda for women, put out propaganda for men. I think it has been a motivation for different organizations, or maybe one organization, is to control people. And so I think that when we, again, as not only with men, but just people, it really is again, I know that women are dealing with this. I know that for sure men are dealing with this. It is a people thing. It is a people thing. The more information that's put out there, it is divisive in nature. And because it is divisive in nature, uh, we don't trust each other. We see the evil works rather than the grace that can be offered to each other. There's another stat here. It says social isolation. Men are more likely than women to say they are not part of any community. And that's huge, guys. And I'll be honest with you. Uh, my I have not always been part of a community. And because of the word entropy that I shared with you earlier, for the fact that the particular situations that we may be dealing with, again, I don't need to know your business or what in fact that you're dealing with, but it is important that we get those things off of our chest. So whether you're talking with me or whether you're talking with another man, we need to be prepared to offload those things and create a safe space for each other as men. It is absolutely crucial, guys, that we overcome this situation. I'm not even going to give the devil the credit on this. I'm not. I know there's systems. Absolutely, there's systems. I would just say I wouldn't say devil. I would say it's evil. It's the work of evil. There's no fictitious character or anything like that. It is the work of evil. It is the work of evil, and that is it, guys. There's no covering this up. There's no trying to fix this up. It is the work of evil that people and organizations of evil would would put out certain information to create division in humanity, division in this world, to have us bickering and fighting and arguing with each other. And I'll say this, I am completely convinced that especially with the area of just psychology, and even with counseling and things of that nature. Not that there's anything wrong with it, and that's not what I'm about to say. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't believe that the world, people in this world, myself and you as well, I don't believe that we have seen a healthy role model other than the one that we read about in the Bible, or maybe Hindu or other religions. And I'm saying that because throughout the course of history, there's been people in different faiths that have rose to the occasion. His name may not have been Jesus. His name may not have been Gandhi, but it's been average people like myself, like you, that have rose to the occasion and have decided to take this assignment on. And when we can rise to the occasion as men to be able to say, hey, I'm dealing with loneliness. And I know it's not an easy thing to discuss. But this is why we need communities. Not to cut ourselves off from the rest of the world, because that's what the isolation is doing. That's what the puppet masters are doing. Literally, guys, they're doing this. So as a result, men are dealing with loneliness at an all-time high. It's been designed this way, gentlemen. And I know that's the conspiracist person that's coming out of me, but it's been designed this way, gentlemen. And I speak that emphatically. We as men have to be prepared to ask some questions. We as men have to be prepared to not walk through life as the good sons. We as men have to be prepared to do the digging. Because in most cases, and I'm going to take a excerpt from the Bible, is that the only way that Adam could be convinced to give up what he had was through the woman. And it is not to say that the woman is bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it had to be it had to be, I guess, in their own mind, it had to be done that way. There had to be a villain. A villain needed to be created, so to speak. And I'm not calling the woman or calling women villains. That's not what I mean. What I'm trying to say here, I don't want to get into this rabbit hole here. What I am trying to say is that in any story, there is normally a protagonist and an antagonist. One who's for something and the other person's against something. The story could have easily been flipped around. But for whatever reason, and just, again, probably many different reasons out there. But because of the nature of us as men and the nature of women, completely different, but nevertheless, I believe it was done that way because they saw that women and how their nature is. And for men, the nature is different. We're not easily persuaded by certain things. And not in all cases, some of us are, but by and large, as men, we're not easily persuaded by certain things. And because we're not so easily persuaded, the one that we love the one that we have feelings for, of coming to a relationship with, was then used to deliver the medicine to us. And I believe that this is what we're dealing with right now in this life. I believe there is obviously a larger story. And in this larger story, in order to take humanity, it wasn't just about mankind, or it wasn't just about men, but it was about the science behind it, so to speak. It was about the science that was behind it. I started to say earlier that I don't think that people and the world that we live in today, this world, I don't know. I don't think that many of us know what healthy relationships look like. And I say that because so much of the beginnings, so many of the beginnings of mankind, humanity, has been evil. So much of what mankind has been dealing with has been evil. Mike over here on LinkedIn says separation. Yeah, it's separation. And and here's the thing. This conversation is not about a conversion, converting you to Christianity or to any other faith. The fact remains is that there's a higher power, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening. There's a higher power that is in control of all of this. And I like what Mike said over here on LinkedIn. Separation. And if I can persuade you away from knowing this God, and let's not even talk about Jesus. Let's not talk about Gandhi. Let's not talk about Buddha or any of the other many gods out there. But a relationship that you and I had access to. We won't even put I won't even put a name to that. But a relationship that you and I have access to. Some call him God, Yahweh, universe, all kinds of different names. But nevertheless, it was a relationship that you and I have access to. And we were pulled away from that relationship for the purpose of control. And as a result, you have people bickering and fighting with each other because they were pulled away from the very essence of who they are. Men and women, all of humanity. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about all of the world, the entire world has been deceived. Guys, I didn't come to play tonight. I didn't come to play. I'm serious. I'm serious. Let's get down to the crux of this. I don't care if you don't believe me. Look it up. Do some research. Look it up and do some research. I also, as a man, had to look at my own humanity. I shared in a broadcast or an interview that I had not too long ago that one of the things that I was working on is having control of my own anger. And I know this is not necessarily normal for us as men to be so vulnerable, but this is what we need in order to destroy the vulnerability is what we need. Absolutely, Michael. I'll read this comment in just a second. Vulnerability is what we need for men and women, all of humanity. Guys, I've come on to talk about men, but in truth, this is the entire world. Women are dealing with being lonely too. It's not just a man thing. But because we are talking about men, I know Men's Day, International Day was yesterday, and it was Men's Day or International Day. I completely missed that. There was no fanfare about Men's Day. But nevertheless, Unless we as men are prepared to be vulnerable, unless we're prepared to be vulnerable and talk about those things that are ailing us, talk about the things that we didn't talk about, excuse me, what happens, and this is from a spiritual perspective, what happens is that you and I, we separate from the holy things. We separate from the things that are pure. We separate ourselves from the things that are righteous, of righteous and a moral value. We separate from those things. Yeah, absolutely. Let me read Mike's comment. I'll get further into that. So Mike says, "There's the truth, transcendental and universal. We are imagers of the truth, ultimate truth within." Absolutely, absolutely. And that is a mouthful right there, guys. That's a mouthful right there. And Mike, we got to have a conversation, brother. We gotta have a conversation online here at some point, brother. Definitely. And Mike goes on to say, wearing a mask doesn't do anyone any good. Take the mask off. Take the mask of inauthenticity, transparency, and honesty. So Mike is basically saying that once you take that mask off, you will reveal the transparency, honesty, and the authenticity. And I know, gentlemen, hey, I didn't just arrive at this place today or yesterday or two months ago. I arrived at this place because I've done the work. I arrived at this place because I know exactly what it feels like to have that mask on. I wore the mask for many years, and I told of a story in the past, different broadcasts that I was on, that in wearing that mask, I had this epiphany one day, and that's when the mask began to come off. Not, it didn't come off completely, and it was a process, guys, because we have to remember we have all been indoctrinated in this. It doesn't matter what your income level is. It absolutely does not matter how easy life looks for you. Okay, this trickery, this lie has worked on all of us, every last one of us, every last one of us, and you literally have to find your way out of this. You have to be brought out of the from the wreckage, the salvage, the heap of trash, so to speak, because in the eyes of these people out there, I think that's what our lives equates to for them. Not worth anything, and you absolutely have to be brought out of something, and I think it does take people. It takes people like yourself, people like me, to have these conversations to bring us out of certain things. And unfortunately, in cases of the that 5-letter word COVID, yeah, that word, that was in a horrific situation. It was a catastrophe. Not to mention all the vaccinations and things that had taken place with people who have taken a vaccination. And as unfortunate as it was, it caused people to go into a place to look at their own humanity, look at life, and look at the things that they needed and they didn't need. Look at the things that were important and were not as important, and begin to shuffle some things around. And unfortunately, a lot of times for us as people, we have to go through that catastrophic event. It's unfortunate because sometimes we don't get the tap on the shoulder. We don't hear the soft voice. We don't hear the God that we're all separated from. We can't hear him. We can't hear that inside voice that is communicating with us because we've been separated. This conversation, or at least parts of this, what I'm sharing with you now, it came up really hard for me, really just pressing in my spirit the other day. That one of the bigger problems that we're dealing with, again, this is not just a man thing, but one of the biggest problems that we're dealing with in humanity is the communication problem. We lost we lost the foundation of our communication. We've been separated from the communication. And so we can find ourselves doing all these different things, acquiring all these different kinds of different things to justify that that feeling or that emptiness. Whether you are a shopaholic, I was a shopaholic at one time too, having to fill that void up with something. It felt good to be able to swipe the card, to look at all my purchases, and at some point I would take them all back or bring them back to the store. It felt good to do that. So I know what it feels like to fill a void. We can fill voids in relationships as well. Absolutely, Michael. Michael over here says this is a comment that's definitely worth reading here, or sharing with you guys. Michael over here in LinkedIn says the sin of Eden was not disobedient; it was the choice of separation from the universe, the truth, the birth created that birth created us. The resultant mess we see today is the continuing natural consequences of that separation. Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely. And Michael, you are absolutely spot on. And that's essentially what I'm saying. And this is, as a result, this is where we're at. As a result, we're feeling lonely, men. As a result, the women are feeling lonely. And as a result, guess what happens? We can find ourselves tinkering with all these different thoughts that are passing through our mind. Could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? And could it be this? And big pharma is what? They're making a killing, man. They're making a killing because of your separation. You're calling it anxiety. They're saying, right, yeah, it is anxiety. Matter of fact, they made the definition. They created a definition of anxiety. And in fact, it is a separation, as Michael just nicely shared over here. Mike says the root of communication is love, leading to relationship at a metaphysical level. Absolutely, Michael. The highest of our connections, and I copy what you said, Michael. The highest of our connection in humanity is love. Is love. And when we as people are at odds with ourselves internally, and we're trying to find someone to pin that situation on. And again, let me say this for clarification. I am not saying that there are people who have not, obviously, clearly, there's people who have done bad things, who have abused people, who have offended people, who have hurt people, who have taken people's lives. I'm not dismissing that. But what I am saying, yes, Michael, yes, absolutely. The good news is we have an agency. We can choose to return to that original relationship with the Creator. Absolutely, Michael. Ah, man, that's powerful stuff, Michael. So I'm not saying that to be dismissive, but what I am saying that when you understand the level of deceit that has been done, that has been perpetrated upon every last one of us, myself included. When you understand the level of deceit that has been perpetrated amongst all of us, you will want to abort the mission. You'd be surprised at the level of deceit that has been, again, forecast on all of us. And as a result, we're standing in it right now. We're having a conversation about the results of what has been forecast, what has been perpetrated amongst us. This is the result of it right now. We're dealing with men loneliness. We're dealing with the husband and wives, the significant others and people just constantly bickering with each other, constantly arguing with each other, internal fights in here because erroneous information has been put out there, all for the likes of keeping each of us separated from God, the Creator. Again, this is not about a conversion. This is not, I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about God. I'm talking about one who created everything. And perhaps we've given the one who created everything a name because we need to be able to fit him inside of a box. We need to be able to make him tangible and real. But you and I are not here by mistake. It was designed for us to be here. It was designed for us to have this conversation. Unless us as men are prepared to step out of the challenges that we're facing. And gentlemen, I know that it's not easy. I know that it's not easy. But I can tell you this. It's going to take faith to get out of it. Well, you might be saying, maybe your question is, well, Curtis, I'm not a church going person. I'm not talking about church. I am not talking about church. I'm not talking about assembling together. But I am talking about having enough faith to believe that your situation can be changed. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about simple belief. Though it may not appear to be so simple. And in fact, it is simple. No, it wasn't always simple to me either. But now that I've studied, become a student, so many of us as men have become students of our careers, students of our different professions. And unfortunately, in most cases, we're left with a shell of a person. A person who gets to the pinnacle of their success. And I know success is subjective, but they arrive at that place. And in most cases, when they arrive at that place, they're saying, what next? In most cases, what next is the relationship that most of us as men have neglected. Relationships aren't easy, guys, especially when you have someone throwing the rock and hiding their hand. Especially when you have those individuals out there who are deliberately sowing seeds of discord, deliberately, for men and women, both, guys. No one has escaped this. It's been deliberately done, guys, that you and I would be at odds with each other. It's been deliberately done for the purpose. As a result, we're serving their purpose. As a result, their purpose has been fulfilled, or they're fulfilling their purpose. And part of fulfilling their purpose is to have us at odds with each other. And as long as we're at odds with each other through race, through your color of skin, through men and women, just as a whole, through not knowing your own sexuality, a man not knowing that he's a man, but seeing himself as a woman seeing herself as a man. Ladies and gentlemen, this has all been done purposely to keep you separated from God. It's been done purposely. I don't even care if you don't like me. That's not the point. Get the message. Get the message before you start carving your own. Before you start trying to carve a way out of this. Get the information and just sit with it. Play this broadcast back if you have to. Just sit with it. Let it resonate for a moment. Don't be so quick to dismiss it. Sure, I know it's not the normal conversation that you hear. But in order for you and I to get our lives back, in order for you and I, and this includes women too, this is not about putting men above women or that seeing that women are less off. No. The entire family, all of humanity has to come up. Women are not better than men. Men are not better than women. But in order to keep that conversation on the table, seeds of discord had to be sown to keep us at odds with each other. Having a one conversation over here in secret and yet another conversation over here in secret. Obviously, it's no secret because as the saying goes, or the Bible says, what's done in the dark does come to the light. And we're standing in that light right now. But it's not the right light. Let me say that. It's not the light, the right light. We're standing in a observation. We're standing in an aha moment. Mike says over here on LinkedIn, says describing the infallible is man's attempt to bring infinite into our finite minds. Futile, but nonetheless, our attempt to have relationship with the infinite source of love. Okay, futile, but nonetheless, is our attempt to have a relationship with the infinite source of love. Absolutely, absolutely. This separation, guys, has done a number on a lot of us. It's done a number on the entire world. It's done a number on the entire world. And I guess I wanted to say in all that I've shared with you is that, men, you're not alone. You're not alone. I had to, and I'm going to be very candid with you, I had to face some things in my own humanity and just reality. Is that, and again, being the person that I am, the nature of the person that I am, I like taking care of people. I like being a servant, and that's just who I am, and I don't think that it will ever change. And I think, and to be honest, I think that's what a lot of us as men. It's not just me, but a lot of us as men. We like serving our spouses, our significant other. We like serving. We make great servants. And I think the challenge is that, and in doing so, and serving the needs of others, there have been the limitations that or that wall that we run into, so to speak, that we only see ourselves as servants. We only see ourselves serving the other people. And I've been there. Good part of my life, been there. Serving others, helping others. Hey, you could do it this way, you could do it this way, blah, 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 and all. And A lot of that information had fallen upon deaf ears. But by and large, I think men see themselves as servants, just serving, just serving. And this has nothing to do with economic status, because even for the men who are high achieving men, they too reach a particular reality. At most cases, at the top of their that success mountain, it's usually what's next. What do I do? What do I do next? I know this because I work with high achieving men. So ideally, for a lot of the high achieving men, it's what's next. So we may reach that space or that pinnacle, if I can call it that. We may reach that space at different times, but the reality of it is that we get there. So whether you've taken a train, plane, automobile, it doesn't matter. We get to that place in life where we as men are saying, what next? And here's what I believe that we can do about it. I think that we can reach out to each other, find a community that you can join. And guys, when I say this, I'm not just saying this because I have nothing else to say and I have nothing else to do. I've been doing live streams for the past several days, guys, and somewhat exhausted a little bit. But I felt this on my heart to come on and share this conversation with you. And as kind of maybe appearing all over the place, and you might be right, there's some truth to it. But nevertheless, I wanted to have this conversation because it's a needed conversation. And as I began to say earlier, is that as men, when we're prepared to be vulnerable, that's when we're prepared to meet the real God. When we're prepared to be vulnerable and get that stuff off of our chests and expose the darkness, that's what essentially needs to happen. Much like how Adam and Eve in the Bible, they covered themselves with fig leaves. And that's essentially what most of us as men are doing. We're covering ourselves up, perhaps not with fig leaves, but in the wake of our careers, our professions, in the wake of going to the gym and working out and bench pressing this, bench pressing that, and all of that stuff. Not there's anything wrong with it. I could definitely use a good workout myself for sure. But in the wake of interesting. Give me 1 second, Sharito. Sharito has a nice comment over here. Thank you, Sharito, for commenting. But in the wake of our busyness, I'll put it that way, and it covers a lot of different territory with that. But in the wake of our busyness, being busy, creating busyness when there's no need to be busy, sometimes we need to be prepared to enjoy the silence, or at least come into that silence and harness that silence. Because in that silence is where we find answers. And I believe as men, if we can stop telling ourselves, having conversations, saying certain things, because what you're not saying, and this is the interesting thing too. This is very interesting now. Gentlemen, even if you're not saying it out loud, your very thoughts, the very thoughts for any of us, the very thoughts themselves, they convict us, guys. So you don't even have to speak it out loud. You don't have to stand on a mountaintop to say certain things. Because whether you've shared your loneliness with someone or not, as a result, this is where we are. Your behavior speaks louder than anything. I know what you're thinking because of your behavior. Because as a result, your behavior isolates you more and more to the point where you don't want to go outside, to the point you stop bathing yourself, to the point you stop eating, you're staying late, you're staying up late, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, not in most cases, not really working on anything too significant, maybe watching the P word, that 4-letter word. And I'm saying that your life does not have to end that way. That does not have to be your plot. But because of the separation, because of the separation, this is the result of what we're dealing with. Ladies and gentlemen, no one escapes. No one escapes without confronting this. I'll put it that way. It's not that you can't get out of this thing, because it absolutely can appear that they've created some kind of maze. I've shared with my wife, and actually have not shared this with many people, but just a few people, or a couple of people. Years ago, actually it's been a recurring dream for me. And that recurring dream has been that I've been in different scenarios within this dream, and I was running to get out. I was running, trying to escape something. And for the life of me, I could not escape. And so naturally, when I woke up, I was concerned. This is a real dream, guys. I'm not making this stuff up. This is a real dream. A recurring dream that I've had for some years now. And I haven't had it recently, but it has been a recurring dream I've had for quite some time now. But in the dream, again, different scenarios, I have been trying to escape. I have been looking for an exit, dimensional or whatever, but I've been looking to escape in this dream. And in doing so, when I woke up, I was completely sweating in sweat. I was frustrated, but at the same time, I felt like I had to figure out something. There was something I needed to figure out. Not necessarily a place where I had to get to, but in my own mind, thinking that this is not it. There's more to it. Guys, give me 1 second. I apologize strongly, but I forgot to lock this door. My baby girl could come in at any moment. So give me yeah. Give me 1 second here. Woo, glad I'm wearing pajamas, man. But nevertheless, I apologize for that. Just thought about it. Had to lock the door. My baby girl, 2-year-old Bella, she will definitely come busting in here, and Mom would come chasing, running after her. So I do apologize for that. That is not something I normally do, is get away from from the camera. But I know I forgot to lock the door, so I apologize for that. Glad I had pajamas on though, but nevertheless, lost my train of thought. Let me go ahead. It'll come back to me. I'll go ahead and read Sharito's comment here. Sharito says, in my life, I don't think men, and this is over on LinkedIn here. Sharito says, in my life, I don't think men around me, maybe my country, my culture, my faith, are so deeply lonely. If I understand how lonely is lonely in your context. Yeah, I would want some more on that, Sharita. Maybe this next comment. Sharita also says, everyone and everything around him, we cannot do anything about him. If that same man does not do anything about himself and His loneliness. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, Sharito. Absolutely. Sharito goes on to say, kind of a lengthy comment, but essentially she's saying in her comment here, she says, everyone and everything around him, being the man, we cannot do anything about him or for him if that same man does not do anything about or do anything for himself and his loneliness. And by the way, this is life, and so loneliness is a part of the whole being. It is, Sharito, but I would definitely uh, give some pushback on that for sure. But I know I get where you're coming from. How boring life would be if there is only that which is no loneliness in it. These are my perspectives in men and women in life. Absolutely. Sharito, I definitely respect what you're saying, and loneliness is absolutely a part of life. And but here in this context of a conversation, I'm not only addressing the loneliness, the effect that loneliness absolutely is a part of life, and you're spot on with that. But I'm also addressing here in the states, Sharito is from the Philippines, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's correct. And so there obviously, as you mentioned earlier, just different culture and just the context and also of how she may understand what I'm saying or just how things are perceived. But here in the states, there is a lot going on, and it's not just about men being lonely. Overall, I believe it is, I guess, what they call a pandemic, epidemic. Sure, there's a difference in either of the terms there, but nevertheless, it is widespread. And the context of what I'm sharing is that it has been created purposely. It is absolutely for every man to deal with his loneliness. Absolutely. And so, how we deal with that loneliness as men, because that loneliness can be like a cloud, a dark cloud, so to speak, and just that overcast, that shadow that we're trying to avert, so to speak. And that's what that loneliness can look like or feel like. But in order to get beyond that loneliness, we've got to be prepared to be vulnerable, share those things, find a community. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. But we've got to be prepared to find a community. We've got to be prepared to offload those things and not allow the world, the society, so to speak. And I'm using that very loosely, but not allow this society to dictate to us how we should feel, because the reality of it is that there's been a major separation. I've been talking about God for a little bit. This dropped in my heart, my soul, my spirit just a few days ago. The problem for a lot of us, women too, is that we've been separated. There's a communication that has been less than authentic. And because the conversation has been less than authentic, it can absolutely make it hard for us to attract the things in life. When I say things in life, but and not in the sense of material things, but attract that right communication, that things that we can say, wow, that felt great to get off my chest. That felt great to say that thing. That felt great to release that thing. And when we can shed the light on what we are dealing with, especially as men, and again, not to say that women aren't dealing with certain things as well or dealing with loneliness, because they are. And maybe, Sharito, maybe you're not dealing with loneliness. But I've had to consider this thing too from a different perspective as well, because I wasn't dealing with loneliness either. But I know that other men are, especially here in the States. And I would even say places that have places throughout the world that has adopted this Western mentality. including the UK. And I don't know a lot about the Philippines and other, countries, but I would say a lot of countries throughout the world that have adopted this Western mentality, they are dealing with the men are dealing with the loneliness. So how do we fix this thing? Is it repairable? It absolutely is repairable. It absolutely is repairable. But I think the reality of it is that we as men, we have to want to be healed. We have to want to repair this thing. Because as long as you are listening to this information that I'm sharing with you, and perhaps in your own mind that you're fighting with that, oh, Curtis is this, and I don't know if I like this guy, I don't know if I trust this guy. As long as you're fighting with me and or other people who come to bring you news or information that's going to open the gates for you, that's going to shed some light on what you're dealing with. As long as you are dealing with that, again, the conflict that arises, because no one trusts that as a man, if you're comfortable in a space that you're in right now, it can be conflict. It can cause conflict receiving new information. There can be an internal conflict that takes place as you're trying to put this thing together. Mike says over on LinkedIn, says, I wrote a song about that too. Curtis, heal along, heal within. Heal along, heal within. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing, guys, healing takes, I would say, it takes having conversations with people. It takes having authentic conversations with people, with men. And I nothing against women, guys. I'm going to say this, but men need to talk to men. Men need to talk to men. Men need to be prepared to talk to men. Men need to be able to create safe spaces for men. All too often, us men are looking for women to create the safe spaces for us. And the truth be told, most women don't have a safe place for themselves. That's what we're dealing with, gentlemen. We're dealing with men, in most cases, who have not healed from their mother issues. And so naturally, they seek out a woman as a safe space, perhaps from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship. They seek out women for a safe place where they can take off their coat and hang it up and finally find a place to hang it up, hang their head up. But unless we as men are prepared to deal with even the mother wounds that we're having, the father wounds, we can find ourselves. I did a conversation yesterday, not on LinkedIn, but on, I think, a couple other different platforms. As I said earlier, I've been doing live streams for the past several days here. So here's the thing. If we as men have not seen the likes of a healthy relationship, guys, come on now, guys. Most of us men are logical, and I want you to use logic behind this. If we as men have not seen healthy, loving relationships, what are the chances that we're going to create healthy and loving relationships? If we have not seen conflict resolved, or our parents resolve conflict, conflict is a natural thing in life. And I believe a lot of the conflict is because of the separation too. But nevertheless, excuse me, conflict is a part of life. And if we have not seen our parents resolve conflict, or in the way they may have resolved the conflict, the chances are we will grow up not knowing how to resolve the conflict too. We will have relationships based on the very foundation of what our parents had given to us, good, bad, or indifferent. We only know what we know. You can't know anything or understand anything past what you have been given knowledge to. So we have to work with what we have. And if you have come to a place where what you're having to work with is no longer working for you or no longer serves you, we find ourselves at a crossroad. We find ourselves that very thing that, great comment. Give me 1 second, Marcia. Thank you for showing up over here on LinkedIn, Marcia. Thank you. So what happens is that it causes an internal conflict. And when it causes an internal conflict, we find ourselves battling with reason, trying to find the logic in it, because we are naturally logical human beings. That's kind of how we're wired as men. But if we cannot reason with the thought processes that we've received, there's conflict because we can't put them in steps. We can't make it logical. And so logic says is that if we have not seen our parents work through conflict in a healthy way, logic says to us, and even to include reason says to us, that we will duplicate the very same thing. And as a result, we, in most cases, have the relationships that our parents had. And this is not necessarily right or wrong, but when you've come to a crossroad and there's conflict with those things, because you've learned and heard different things that will definitely benefit you, and you want to implement these new thought processes and to put them in motion, apply them to your own situation, it creates conflict. And that conflict, once created, it could make it seem like Curtis is lying. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Or whoever you may be talking to, whoever the person might be giving that information, because it doesn't feel like love all of a sudden, because it's causing conflict. But here's the reason why it causes conflict. Because in most cases, we've been walking comfortably in that space for only God knows how many years. And so when change begins to pursue us, that's what's happening right now. Change is pursuing many of us. And we're at a crossroad, or that pursuit is creating conflict for us. And in that pursuit, it creates not only the conflict, but it creates even the loneliness. Because we've got different trains of thoughts, all trying to fit down this pipeline, so to speak. Marcia over here on LinkedIn says, when men stop, I love these comments, by the way, ladies, I love these comments. And again, thank you, Marcia, and thank you, Sharito. But I truly love these comments here. Marcia says over here on LinkedIn, when men stop thinking of being macho and tough, then they will come to the realization that being lonely is a choice. Ooh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Ouch. Okay, okay, Marcia. Yeah, you got to come on the show as well, Marcia. I got to have you on as well. Marcia goes in to say a healthy relationship is important, especially with themselves and among themselves. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, yeah, there was an ouch piece in that, Marcia. Yeah, there was an ouch piece in there. But nevertheless, I'll put it this way, Marcia. I'm not sure where you came in on the conversation, but I'll say it this way. Part of me is a conspiracist, and not just because I have nothing else to do, but I've also done the research. From a spiritual perspective, we look at the Bible, for instance, how the Bible has been wrote in different forms, and for slaves had one part of the Bible, and yet other people had different parts of the Bible. And this stuff is true. It's facts. So I'm not just talking to be talking. And here's the thing, Marcia, and anyone else that's listening. The teacher and the student become one. The teacher and the student become one. The teacher and the student become one. Here's what I mean by that. And I shared this with someone, a LinkedIn friend earlier. We were talking on the phone. Is that the master who teaches us to sing, who has put all this stuff together, the people that he or the system, I won't say he, but the people that the system indoctrinates, even through education, judicial system, legislative system, and all that stuff, executive systems, all that stuff. The master who teaches this stuff, he doesn't even escape, because eventually the student and the master become one. The master has to practice in order to try to be ahead of the student, but eventually the student and the master or the teacher become one. The master is no different from the student. The two can't be separated. So I say that to say I agree with you on the second half of what you said, but the first half of what you said, I have to offer a little pushback on that one, because we understand that the system in itself, Marcia, it's not as simple as it sounds. There's lots of moving pieces here, and obviously I'm not going to be able to cover everything tonight. And I'm not to even say that I know all the moving pieces, but I have studied in this thing profusively. I didn't just show up on this space, and then again, I invite you to do some research in that area as well. But what I shared also, and what I shared also earlier, was is that much of part of what men are dealing with, not only men but people in general, but for the sake of this conversation, men, we're dealing with the separation. This thing is spiritual more than anything, Marcia. It's more spiritual than anything. And I'll leave that there, but it's a lot more spiritual than we think. And it's not about us as men being trying to be so macho, and that's what we've been given. And if that's what we've been given, we're all a part of this chaos, so to speak. So we, in most cases, don't know how to show up. That includes the women too. I don't know if you were part of the conversation when I said earlier, Oftentimes us men, we need to be able to have conversations with men, vulnerable conversations with men in communities. But all too often, what happens, us men are looking for women to be the safe space, even when the women don't know how to be safe spaces for themselves. So I say that not as a dig, but to understand, for you to understand, and for all of those who will listen to this, perhaps, hopefully, you will share this information out. But I say that to say is that we're all part of the same system, and it just plays out differently for each of us. If you have children, in most cases, your children are not identical to each other. They don't have the same behaviors, the same likes and dislikes. One child you might have to be more nurturing with. Another child is not so much on the nurturing piece of it, but it's more logical. You might have to talk to them more. So if we can understand it in that perspective in regards to the differences in how life just shows up for each of us and how our own interpretation, for one person, it's again for one child who's more nurturing or who needs to be more nurtured, yet another child who we need to talk to. Marcia says over in LinkedIn, says society has a lot to play in that aspect of men's life. Absolutely. Also in the lives of women, Marcia. It's not just a one-way street. All of us have been affected. Every last one of us. And what I want to do, or what I'm not trying to do, is to pinpoint it on and say, oh, it's the women, it's the women, it's women. No, we're not going to get anywhere with that. We're not going to get anywhere with me cowering down and say, oh, it's the man's fault. The man needs to be more of this. No, absolutely not. We're all deceived, Marcia. We have all been deceived. There's a scripture in the Bible, and I can't remember its verse, but it talks about how the enemy came at nighttime and had sown seeds of discord. And maybe that nighttime is not a physical nighttime, but at a place where we didn't understand. At a place where one person understood something, and for the sake of manipulating others, they put out propaganda, information related to a host of different things that inevitably kept us at odds with each other. Truly, it is important for us as men to heal. Absolutely. But a woman can't receive a man who's healed if she's not healed. Or vice versa. If a woman's healed, she can't receive a man who has not healed. He's going to be hell in her life. And the opposite is true as well. For a man who's healed and a woman's not healed, she's going to be hell in his life. So it truly has to be someone that says, you know what, I'm going to do the hard work. I may be laughed at. I may be talked about. I may be spat on. I may be seemingly cut off from the rest of the world. It may feel lonely. I may be alone, but not lonely. There's two different things. I hope this is making sense. I hope this is making sense. Because what's happening is that we're trying to fight each other. we end up trying to fight each other. So, as to your point, Marcia, society absolutely has a lot to play in the aspect of men's lives, but also in the aspect of women's lives, life in general. There's a reason why social media and media as a whole has been owned by different organizations and groups of people. There's a reason why. There's a reason why the politicians are paid off. Marcia says over here on LinkedIn, by the way, keep those comments coming, Marcia. I love them. And hopefully you're not taking offense to what I'm saying, but I just want to kind of just give a greater clarity on what I'm sharing with you. But I do love your comments and your appetite for knowledge. Absolutely. So Marcia says over here on LinkedIn, says, my last comment is that if men should realize that the Bible was written for them, most was written for them foremost, then they will understand how to operate, and then things in life will align with God's will and purpose. Wow, that's good there, Marcia. And even what I mentioned on that piece, Marcia, and again, I love what you said there. Even what I mentioned on that piece, I don't know if you were listening to the conversation at that point. I had mentioned that the deception that we are dealing with in this world is so deep. It's so deep. It's so deep. And and I don't know if you were aware of this, but even for the Bible, it's unfortunate, but even for the Bible, there were parts of the Bible who were written for slaves, and there were parts for the Bible who were written for perhaps the aristocrats. I don't know, but I do, and I'll put this out here. I do believe in the Bible, but also understand that the deception, to the level of deception, we don't all know. We don't all know. And I think there's a reason too, and in line with what you were saying, Marcia, there's a reason why there are not a lot of men in church. Unfortunately, there's a reason why, and I think that again, we men and women, our nature is different. You know, it's just different, and that's okay. And I think that this animal, this thing that became this animal that was initially pure, holy, righteous, consecrated, set apart to be, as the Bible says, a holy nation. That's us, those people who believe. Again, I believe those things are true, but I do believe also that at some point evil had intersected the path. Evil. I'm not gonna say it was the devil. It's just evil. People are evil sometimes, and their need to control. And I would even go as far as say, I shared earlier, is that one of the things that I had been dealing with and still working it out now is my anger. And I had to realize that my anger was not necessarily about the person, but it was more about the control. And I'm being very honest with you guys. That's what the anger was about. And that's what the anger is about for most of us, is that the lack of control. That's why a lot of times us men are dealing with anger, because the lack of control, controlling of that particular situation, being put into a place where we're not feeling uncomfortable. And as I stated earlier, you can't reason that all the thoughts, all that energy that's coming, and you're trying to make sense of it. And you're made to feel, or at least not made to feel, but you're feeling uncomfortable receiving all these different thoughts and feelings and things of that nature, because you're uncomfortable now. And you're uncomfortable with the thing that a lot of times we as men, we're uncomfortable with the thing that we can't make sense of. And sometimes we just go along to get along, and all of a sudden there's that line that comes out because we can't make sense of it. We're not able to control it. And I'm not sharing this as a justification for it and saying that it's okay. I'm just saying that there's the thought process. That's what's happening. And and again, even with women deal with anger. They deal with it differently. Men are more overtly with their anger. And this is true. And women are more covertly, they're more sneaky with their anger. Whereas that they will do it kind of like maliciously. And a man will do it in front of your face, so you see that he's angry. But a woman in most cases will do it covertly, do it behind your back, or do it sneaky in some way. In areas where in most cases us men haven't even thought about. So there is a difference. Sharita over here says over here on LinkedIn, if man feels lonely, try to remember that even God experienced loneliness when he was on earth with us. He blessed us just because of that. Amen. 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 Absolutely, Sharito. Again, Sharito, I'm in agreement with you. That loneliness, excuse me, as you stated earlier, and I think maybe Marcia had said this as well, loneliness is a part of life. It's a part of life. But you also understand that the being alone and loneliness, they are two different things. They're two different things. And so I can appreciate both you and Marcia's train of thought in regards to, oh, if a man is lonely, he just needs to fix himself. I can appreciate that, but it's not always so easy. Much in the same way when women are dealing with some things and we men try to explain something to you. And you're saying, well, Curtis, it's not that simple. And I'm not trying to give you tit for tat, but I want you to understand is that in most cases, we as men and women, we're dealing with the same thing, but they manifest themselves differently. And how a man may deal with anger is one way, is outwardly. A woman deals with anger internally, in the sense that how she plays out her anger. Well, she may do something in a sneaky way. She may do something from a space of that stealth mode that women often are so good at. And the next thing you know, that we men sometimes haven't even thought about it. But for us as men, we're dealing with anger. It's more outwardly. You see that anger at that moment. And I'm not saying that either way is okay. But as a result, as I mentioned earlier, that being alone and loneliness, they're two different things. Loneliness is a result, I believe, of what was created. Sure, there are decisions that we all could have made in life, or better decisions, so to speak. But when you have what I believe the puppet master, so to speak, pulling strings through media, pulling strings through through politicians, and all these different arenas that make up these different systems here at least in the States here. And I would probably say throughout the world. Again, everybody plays the game differently. So being alone, what Jesus experienced, and loneliness are two different things. So if the systems the systems that have been created out there, not only benefit us, but they control us to a degree. They control us. And so, in most cases, again, being alone and loneliness, they're two different things. Being alone, Marcia over here says on LinkedIn, Marcia over here on LinkedIn says, women may just laugh or smile and say, really? I'm going to say to that, Marcia, really? That's my comment on that one, Marcia. I love it though. Good try, Marcia. But the reality of it is that men and women deal with anger differently. Anger is a human response. It is. It's a human response. But within that anger, anger is the result of an action, behavior, outwardly behavior. And again, within that, if you were to uncover that, peel back the layers, take the cap off of it, so to speak, you would find that there were other motive, other things playing to that anger that caused the anger. There's a root cause to it, so to speak. So anger is typically the result of a many different things, but the result of in most cases things that people can't control, and even with women, things that they can't control. So I don't know if I agree with that one, Marcia, that a woman will say, a woman may just laugh or smile and just say, really? I don't know if I agree with that one. I think anger is just a natural response for all of us as human beings. And we deal with it differently. Again, for us men, we're more overtly about it. And not to say it doesn't take place internally, because it does. The anger first takes place internally, and then eventually, or at least the confusion, the chaos, the conflict takes place internally for all of us. But for men, we play that out outwardly, and women play that more so being inwardly disguised, as a disguise, so to speak. But yet they will do something covertly. And again, we all play it differently, play it out differently. So yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. Marcia. So very interesting. So with that being said, guys, I just wanted to come on and yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Marcia says over on LinkedIn, it says great conversation, and you should have a part two on women's loneliness. Marcia, that's a great idea, and I think you should be a part of that conversation. Absolutely, we need to talk more. And I haven't actually seen you for a while, Marcia, so I hope that you are doing well, and you and your family are doing well. But I haven't seen you for a while. But yeah, let's have a conversation about that, Marcia, and play the advocate, if you will. And we can play it from different spectrums, and not for the sake of causing contention or causing strife, or to show that I can disagree with her. No, no. But I think the conflict is important, because here's why it's important, because it shows each of our thinking processes. It shows our thinking. And so I truly applaud Marcia over here on LinkedIn, and Sharito as well, because when you share these things, as awkward as it may feel for me to answer them, because I see them in a different perspective, as awkward as it may to feel to again to hear to read the comments, I completely receive them. But at the same time, I've had to adjust in here and how I respond, because this is not about bringing more contention. This is about having a healthy conversation. And so what Marcia and Sharito have done is that they've been vulnerable. And whether they're right or wrong, and they've shared their thoughts. Whether I'm right or wrong, I've been able to share my thoughts, and we've been able to have a healthy conversation. That's what this is. That's what this has been about. Is having a healthy conversation about men's loneliness, and to help share the different truths that, again, being alone and loneliness, they are two different things. Being alone comes from a person. Being alone comes from a place of solitude and confidence. You can be alone and not be lonely. But loneliness, on the other hand, it comes from something that was inserted. It comes from the seeds of discord that have been sown. Because after all, what I started this conversation off with earlier is about a separation for all of us. Not in the mandates of the doctrine that man has created in the different sects of religion and things of that nature, and each church has their own doctrine. None of that nonsense. But in the sake of that, whether you believe in God or not, because you don't, doesn't mean that he doesn't exist. And if you do believe in God, you can find that space through faith. Because if it's not through faith, give me a second, Sheree, I'll get to your comment in just a moment. If it's not through faith, we have no way of exiting the situations that we're in right now. Not only as men, but as women. We need to connect ourselves to the source again. Again, this conversation is not about converting anyone, but to understand that there's been a major deceit that has taken place. And in that place of deceit, we have been separated from the source. And we can find ourselves doing all different things to satisfy that craving, that insatiable desire, that appetite that cannot be satisfied. Good night, Marcia. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Really appreciate you. Marcia, I'm serious. We need to have a conversation. I would love to talk about women's loneliness. Absolutely. So let's do that. Hopefully you're back for a time and we can have that conversation. Absolutely. So again, thank you, Marcia. Good night to you as well over here on LinkedIn. So that being said, this male loneliness, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real thing. I would encourage the men out there who are dealing with that loneliness to know that you're not by yourself. To know that you're not by yourself. To be prepared to bring to light some of the things that you're dealing with or have not dealt with. In most cases, the loneliness, again, it even starts, I think someone said it earlier in the comments, it starts from our respective families. Not only just the families, but it starts with all the propaganda, all the stuff that's out here, all the stuff that keeps us at odds with each other. So as we wrap it up, guys, hopefully this conversation has been a good conversation to you. As Marcia has stated, it has been a great conversation. And I love your comments, Marcia. Love your comments, Sharito, and all others who have been a part of the conversation. Absolutely, Michael as well. Definitely need to include Michael in that conversation. He's had a lot of great input. And for any of you that have left comments and I have not been able to see the comments, thank you. I really appreciate that as well. And I will look at the comments and try to answer the comments as quickly as possible. But again, hopefully this conversation has been meaningful to you. Hopefully you are ready to make some changes and bring those things that you're dealing with. Again, you don't all have to bring them all out at one time, but be committed to getting those things, offloading those things off your chest, your shoulders, your back, whatever the case might be. Be prepared to offload those things. Be prepared to reach out to me as well. I'm Curtis Brooks over here on LinkedIn, over on YouTube. It is Men's Life Coaching. And before we wrap it up, I did not mention this here because I didn't really want to seem like I was kind of being weird and all that stuff. But I do have an event that's taking place. Let me get it up on the screen for you. I do have an event that's taking place here. That's taking place online. It is a free webinar. It is absolutely free, so there's no charge for this webinar. And we're talking about uncovering your path from success to significance. And this is going to be a powerful webinar. And I'll talk more about some of the things that even we're talking about now, but go into a greater depth on those things. And I hopefully you will be there. The link is on the screen at bit.ly/60-minute journey. Again, that's pretty much going to be the size of the conversation, an hour-long conversation. Okay, give me a second, Sharita. I'll read your comment in just a second here. So yeah, it is an hour-long conversation, and we're going to dive more into some of the things that we're talking about now, but even deeper, guys. And so this conversation actually has gone on a lot longer than I had anticipated. Each of the conversations I've done before, previously through live streams, have only been just a little bit over an hour. I think it was Marcia and Sharito and Mike pulling on me, so causing me to share this information, offload this different thoughts to you. But nevertheless, the event is taking place December 9th at 6 p.m. Central Time. Again, that's December 9th at 6 p.m. Central Time. And again, check out the link bit.ly/60-minute journey. And it's going to be a good time. It is absolutely a confidential conversation, guys. If you are so inclined, you want to have a copy of the recording afterwards, you surely can. If you register and you can't make it, that's okay too. But we're only designated for 35 seats, and I've done that purposely. And as I said it earlier in a previous broadcast, is that I probably should have had fewer seats, because when you're talking on this level or sharing content on this level from that spiritual space, it can be very taxing. And I want to make sure, not only just for myself, but I want to make sure that absolutely, Sharito. Good night to you as well. So I want to make sure that that those participants, the men who are going to be showing up, that the information is retainable. And so again, we keep the classes small, or the group small, for that reason. Any larger would not work, and because of just all the dynamics that are taking place with a larger audience. So that being said, guys, again, check out the link there on the screen. That's going to take you to uncovering the core, your path from success to significance. We're talking about the things that we've talked about tonight. Visit the link on the screen, bit.ly/60-minute journey. And guys, with that being said, let me read this last comment here. Take this off screen here. Sharito says, by sharing to us, we may not bring solutions or medicine to cure, but we bring to calm, to soothe and soften the blow. From there, the healing may gradually come. Absolutely, Sharito. Great comment, Sharito. Thank you. Sharito is saying over on LinkedIn is saying that during this conversation, we may not necessarily bring a cure or the medicine for this conversation, for the healing right now, but as long as we are bringing forth this conversation, as long as we're talking about it, we bring forth the balm. We bring forth a soothing, a softness, softening the blow to these hard conversations, so that eventually healing comes forth. So great comment, Sharito. Thank you. Appreciate you. Uh, Again, guys, that being said, I'm going to say good night. And it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Sharito. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Mike, and all those who have watched the replay, who will watch the replays. Share this conversation out. I know it's a bit long. It was not my intentions, but it was just kind of my heart talking to me. Just wanted to say some things and get them off my chest. And I just want you to know and understand again, loneliness and being alone are two different things. So, good night, everyone. We will talk with you later. Get my fingers to work in here, and we'll say bye bye.